Hi there everyone, welcome. If you're joining me for the first time, I'm happy you're here, and if you've been with me for some while, I'm happy you've come back. This is Miss Darling, and we're in my art studio, and today's video is going to focus on embellishing masterboards. Here is a masterboard that I made in my very first video for this channel, and it is a diagonal style, and I guess people really hadn't thought too much about working on the diagonal, so it has been quite popular. And I made this on camera, and then off camera I made photocopies of it and I embellished the photocopies. That way I could maintain my original as it was when I made it, and then I can play around with all kinds of decoration and, just fun playmaking on the photocopies, and I don't have to worry about ruining my masterboard. So here was one, and this I embellished with printed tissue paper that I just tore out and glued on top. Here's another one, same thing with the tissue paper with florals. Now this one is heavily embellished, and that's because I wanted to be able to cut it up into tags and bookmarks and artist cards and other smaller ephemera. And when you're going to do that, you need to make sure you've got plenty going on all over the board, and so that's why this one appears rather cluttered compared to this one. And in this one, my goal was to use this in a journal, and if I folded it or a photocopy of this into my journal, it could, and I folded it this way, it could be the center of a signature. If I fold it the other way, then it becomes 2 pages with 2 other pages in between that you would have to either decorate, collage, or print, or just leave it plain for someone to journal on. As you can see, just using the one masterboard, here are just 2 ideas that came off of that, offshoots off of that can be used in multiple ways. Now here are a bunch, 7 to be exact, masterboards that I made earlier this week, and they're all different kinds. Here's one that the color palette is rather pinkish. It's very floral driven and very unique. It's very busy and could make a great masterboard to cut into smaller pieces. And then here's one that's a little on the cool side. We got blues, we got the brown tones and tints going on, and it could be used this way. It could be turned around and used different ways because the ephemera is glued on in different directions. It can be a fun one to either further embellish and then cut up into tags or something else. And here's a warm version, and the same thing. It's heavily embellished, going different directions. You could view it from different sides and use it however one would see fit. It could be further embellished or left as it is. Here's a little bit lighter version, working with the rust and the blues in a nice triadic color palette, and very fun. Now this one has a large focal point here and 2 working together on this side. They're both facing this way. This would probably not be something one would use upside down or anything, because the focal points are facing the same direction. But it could make a lovely 2-page spread or 2 pages in a journal, or it's busy enough to be cut up and used. And when I say that, just remember I'm talking about if you want to preserve your masterboard, then by all means make photocopies of it and then play around with the photocopies, leaving your original intact. Here's a very warm, we're working with kind of a custard color and teal and green. It's very harmonious and very busy, and again, this one I think could also be, used this way. Not so much this way, but again, they each have their own color scheme, their own personality, and their usefulness will vary. Here's a very feminine board with lots of flowers. A lady here. This one is multi-directional, so you could turn it and use it in more than one way. And I think it's very lovely, very feminine, and would look great in a journal or cut up for a journal that is very feminine and that uses this color palette. And then lastly, we have this cooler, soft version, very busy in one sense and yet not so busy in others. And most of the ephemera is pointing to this direction, but you can see if you turn it around, we have a left side here that could work in this format, this viewpoint. That's what's wonderful about masterboards. You can play around, you can have them all go the same direction, you can have them go multiple directions, and then use them in different ways depending on how they come out and how you like them and what your ultimate purpose is. These are all ready to be photocopied, and I did photocopy them already, and here we go. And your printer is going to alter the colors just a hair. You have to be prepared for that if you've never photocopied masterboards before. What you wind up with is not going to be exactly the same as what you made, but no one's going to know that but you. And these are the photocopies of those 7 masterboards, and then here I have a bunch of photocopies of other masterboards I've done in the past, and I'm just going to flip through them quickly so you can see the variety. Here's one that has not been embellished very much. Be great for 2 pages in a journal rather than being cut up. But of course, if one adds a whole lot more to it, then it can be an ideal board for cutting into smaller shapes. Here's another one that is ideal for a page, and you can see that there's just a wide variety of things that can be made. These were all done digitally, and there are advantages and disadvantages to that. And of course, there are advantages and disadvantages to the handmade collage version. But either way, you can come up with very nice, beautiful masterboards that can be used in different ways. And I'm going to be demonstrating a couple of things today. Now, earlier this week, I made a video as I was embellishing the first 5 masterboards that I made. I was embellishing them with this. It's Liquitex's modeling paste. And modeling paste is a great product. There are, of course, other brands, and this video is not sponsored by Liquitex, but it is one of the brands that I've used for years. and this is a medium gel. They do have a heavyweight, but you don't need that. A medium is fine. Mine is a bit dried out, and so I will have to replace it quite soon. But what I did is I took this modeling paste, and using a palette knife like this and some stencils, I was able to add on a three-dimensional aspect to these photocopies. And if you were to run your hand over them in the sections that I embellished with the modeling paste, you would be able to feel how rough it is. It's not so rough or not so three-dimensional that you cannot still photocopy. You can then cut this up, and so your decision if you want to add some modeling paste to your masterboards is to, and you're going to cut them up into tags and other ephemera, then you have to decide whether you're going to add the embellishments before you cut them up or after you cut them up. And sometimes it's advantageous to do it one way as opposed to another, and you just have to make that decision. So here on all of these, I changed up the stencil a little bit from one to another, but hopefully you can see that there are places where I embellished. I usually will do that at least 3 times for the repetition. Repetition brings unity, and so I'll do it at least 3 times, maybe trying to form a triangle. And then if I see some spaces that look rather uninteresting, I might add a little bit more. Now, when you're using the natural color, as I've done here, you'll notice that it shows up best against a dark background. And if you've got a dark background, it's probably more ideal, or can be more ideal, to use the modeling paste in its natural form. Today, however, since I've already done some in white to show you, we're going to add color to our modeling paste and change it up a little bit. Here is that real soft pinkish one I showed you earlier, and I wouldn't want to do something really dark on this that interrupts that soft palette. And working with a white, or I guess it's more like an off-white, working with the natural color of the modeling paste, it just lends itself beautifully to this soft palette and doesn't interfere with it, adds to it, but doesn't diminish from the masterboard. The same with this. This one is a lighter palette, and yeah, you can barely see the embellishment, but it's not there to take center stage. It's there just to be supportive of the imagery that's on the masterboard. And now we come to the 2 most recent ones that I just made, and these have no embellishments on, and we're going to do that today. All right. I'm going to put a little protection down here first. And I guess we'll use it this way. And I looked all over for my palette and couldn't find it anywhere, so I folded over a piece of tissue paper, and hopefully this will serve my purposes all right for today. So I'm going to take out a little bit of the modeling paste. I have to dig down in to find some that is still workable. This on top is dried out quite a bit. You don't need a whole lot of it for what I'm going to do today, and then make sure you close your top right away, because as you can see, it does dry out on you, and it's no fun to have to throw half a container away. Now I'm going to use Liquitex soft body acrylic paint, Mars Black. They have two versions of black. Mars Black is the cooler black. There's a warmer one. I forget the name of it. Anyway, I'm going to use the cool black. And I'm going to put some of that out. Now, all you do then is you take your palette knife and you mix the paint into the paste, and the degree of blackness, or its value is an art term for how dark or light a particular color is. Oop, got some on my hand. So I'm coming out with kind of more of a charcoal black, and I want it to be darker than that, so I'm going to squish out a bit more paint. It has also started to thicken up on me a bit. So, whoa, I'm getting myself real dirty here. Hang on, gotta clean up. Well, it's good to have some baby wipes close by for these purposes. I can see it's messier since I'm really not working with a true paint palette underneath, and also because the paste is a little too dried out, so it's not very pliable. But we're going to press on. These are photocopies of the master board, so if they don't turn out the best as a result. Now I think I've got a little too much paint in there. I'm going to have to grab another palette knife. Okay, get a little more out here. Alright, that's looking pretty black. I did it again. Okay, now I'm going to take a stencil. I think we'll work with this one first. And I'm just going to stencil little dabs. You know, I'm not gonna do very big sections. It's all going to be smaller sections. Just, you know, throwing it down, getting some on, and looking for places. And what I do is I look for places that are a little bit bald, or not that much going on. So here's kind of a space that could use it. We could maybe put some up there and maybe a little over here. That gives me my triangular, which is good for design purposes, and then we'll see after that if we need to do anything else. So I'm just gonna press in. I don't want any kind of geometric shape. I just want something that goes down. And then I'm just going to come over here and we'll just, do something like so. And then I'll drop it down there, pick up a little more of this. And so. And well, I'm just going to drop a little bit in there. I have a space that just crying for something, so we'll do that. And that's all I'm going to do with this one. Just set it aside now to dry. And I have another one. This is the warmer version of a master board. Alright, so I'm looking for empty spaces. Got one up here, got one here, got something over here. So I think we'll start with this. I'm going to catch both of those at the same time. And this time I think we'll change up our stencil. And use this one that is a series of holes. I'm using Tim Holtz stencils in case anybody's interested. Okay, and I want to drop something in there. And a little bit of something over here. I don't have a triangle going on. Well, in a sense I do, but not a very direct one. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of the paste, and I think we'll drop something right in there. And if you're going to add more, I suggest you add odd numbers. So there's 5 places, and that's all we're going to do with this one. But we're not done. Now I have all of these tags. These tags have all been made from masterboards. And as you can see, there's a wide variety, and some of them are pretty busy already, and then some of them need quite a bit of embellishment. So we're just going to pull out a few, and then some of the ones that seem to need a little more pizzazz. And of course, you don't want to do everything that you have with this same method, because there's a zillion ways you can embellish tags, and they don't all have to be done with this particular technique or even this particular color. And I only have a limited space of where I can set these out to dry. I just want to do enough to give you an idea. Now this is what happens when you come back, when you've already cut out your tags, and now you decide where on the tag itself you want to put some embellishment. I think looking at this, I'd like to kind of do something in a like an L shape kind of going this way. I'm going to work on the right side to add a little bit more balance to the tag. We've got something going on at the top and something on the left side, but our right side looks pretty lonely and bare. So we're just going to add a little bit. Let's see what that does. Just that little bit just lifts it and picks it up, because now we've got more contrast. We're going from a dark black down to a kind of tint of a custard yellow, and so that contrast is fantastic. And here we have another one, and this time our design is heavier on the right side than on the left, so I'm going to embellish on the left side. And I'll drop right in there. I'm not going to think about it too much, just going to add a little bit. Okay? And here we have a bigger tag. I'm going to do something on the lower part of this. I've got some nice textural design here on the upper part. I'm going to leave that alone for the moment, but I'm going to strengthen the bottom part and give it some pizzazz down here. Okay? See how easy that is and how much fun, or I'm having a great deal of fun. Here we got kind of the same thing going on. We've got a lot of stronger text, larger text on top, and then this great small stuff down here, but it's not very noticeable. So we're going to concentrate on beefing up just the lower section. And so why don't we change it up now to a different stencil. We'll go back to this one that I used earlier and just kind of drop in something there. And the more random it is, the better I like it. Okay, here's a medium size. We're very heavy design on the right, strong on the top. Got this image here. I'm going to leave all that alone. I've got a partial view of a man's ear right here, which we don't really need to keep unless you insist. But I think we'll just kind of take him out of the equation. Maybe that didn't do too much. We'll try again. Need to get more paste. And there we go. And this will dry very firm. It won't come off. You saw me kind of come along the edge here. If you see little bits that are, overflowing, you might want to go ahead and take those off while it's still wet, because once it dries, they will be harder to get off. I'm going to work on this bigger one here. Now this is the opposite, where we've got some more going on down below than we have up above. I'm going to add a little extra zoom, a little extra pizzazz to the top here. I'll get a clean section. And there we go. So isn't that fun? And that's enough of that particular group, and let me just pull out a few. Now, this is a group of tags that have already been quite embellished already. Most of these aren't going to need anything else. but I'm just kind of quickly showing to you. These were all made from a masterboard of some kind and then embellished or not. I've done some sewing around the outer edges, and I like that. All of them were glued to another sheet of cardstock before I did anything else. So they're nice and sturdy, and they really feel good in your hand. You know you've got something of real value. Now these, because they were printed on the back, have not been glued to another piece of cardstock, and so they're flimsier and not to my taste. But on the other hand, I didn't want to cover up the great imagery that's on the reverse of them. But the ones that I sewed and that I glued, you can see they're white on the back, and it gives a place for someone to do journaling. And so I'm really not finding anything in there. They're so heavily embellished already that I'm going to leave those alone, and I'm not going to add anything else to them. But I did want you to see how easy it is to get a lot of tags and other ephemera from masterboards. They have a great use, and make sure you're making some for yourself. And I will have digital kits available in my Etsy shop, where if you don't want to make your own, or you want to for some reason have something that I've already made, you can go and get the kit and then print off as many masterboards as you want and play around with them as well. And if you like this content of this video, I hope you'll give it a like and share it with friends and family, anybody you know who's interested in DIY, and I would appreciate that, and so would they. Now here's a smaller little template, bunch of, squares like checkerboard, and so I'm going to strengthen the upper part. In kind of a diamond-like. Very rough, and that's also what's great, is you don't have to get all caught up in what kind of shape and how much should I do. Just throw some down there and pick your stencil up, and if you feel it needs more, then add a little more, and if you think it's just perfect, then let it alone and let it dry. There you have it, embellishing your tags and masterboards with modeling paste, whether it's natural or colored, and a stencil and a palette knife. If you don't have a palette knife, you could use a credit card. Just anything that's stiff that you can get into the jar and then use to push the paste through the stencil onto whatever you're doing. And as I said, you can do it ahead of time to the masterboard, and then that will show up on every photocopy you make, or you can wait, cut out your tags and other ephemera, and then embellish them personally where they need it most. And now I will go back with these after they're dry, and I will look for other ephemera to add, because none of them really have a focal point. This one has sort of one here, but there really is no focal point, so I will add focal points to them. I will glue them to some cardstock to make them a little sturdier. And when everything is said and done, I will probably sew all around the perimeter, as I like that quite a bit. So after I quit filming, I had some little extra of the modeling paste left over, and I try not to let anything go to waste. I grabbed these repair tags that I had bought from Amazon and haven't done anything with them yet, and decided to use up the rest of my paste on them. I grabbed another stencil, and here's what I got. I love that. And I got this with a different stencil yet. Just depends on what stencils you have. You just need part of it. Don't go buy big expensive stencils when these little ones will suffice if all you're going to do is something small. You can even make stencils if you want, but just thought I would throw this in and show you what I did to use up my excess modeling paste, and I love that. I'll probably do more of that. That's it for this video, and thank you for being here, for sticking with me, and hope to see you again in future videos. For now, this is Miss Darling calling this a wrap.